Welcome to a midweek space news video. So rather than doing a scripted space news, I'm going to be doing a less polished, unscripted space news and covering more space news items, but smaller segments, just so I can get through more content. And yeah, so I've got some notes and I've got some images, but we're just going to quickly run through the space news. So first of all is a company that I'm not familiar with called Reorbit. They posted on X that they've got a 45 million euro Series A funding. From the website, it says you should have full independence and control of your satellites. With Reorbit's sovereign satellites, you stay in control of your critical space infrastructure, ensuring national security and long-term resilience. And the company, they manufacture satellites and connected systems for national security. They're headquartered in Helsinki, Finland, and they focus on innovation and world-class engineering. They have a global presence, and they say, we are very excited to announce that Reorbit has closed a 45 million euro Series A funding round, the largest all-equity Series A round in Finland, and one of the most significant deals overall in the European space and defense sector. So, okay, that's interesting. It's a new company to me. I'm not aware of them. This company I am aware of. This is Apex Space. I've done a space news segment on them in the past, and they've got a whopping $200 million financing round. So the company is 3 years old now, and they're on the third anniversary. They just got $200 million. This boosts their valuation to over $1 billion, and it helped them to deliver a major constellation program for their customers. The tagline for the company is standard satellite bus platforms from 100 to 500 kilos, configurable to your mission needs, delivered in weeks. So there you go. And the next thing I want to talk about is SpaceX. They paid $17 billion to EchoStar for spectrum licenses. So that will allow them to have satellites that do direct to cell. So satellite will communicate directly with a mobile phone or a cell phone, bypassing the other cell providers in the US, and I guess in other countries as well. So they're going direct to the market and cutting out the middleman, which is very interesting. And it's cost them a lot of money, $17 billion. In additional news about SpaceX, they launched the, I think I have an image of it somewhere, the Cygnus-NG-23 cargo vehicle. I don't think I have an image of it. Anyway, so they're launching the Northrop Grumman NG-23 Cygnus-XL cargo freighter. So the XL is new. It's a new extended length cargo freighter to the International Space Station that can carry 5 tons. That's 11,000 pounds of cargo. So that was launched the other day. It should be docking later today in about 6 or 7 hours. And NASA says on the website that materials it's including materials to produce semiconductor crystals in space and equipment to develop improvements for cryogenic fuel cells, plus the usual food and water and other routine supplies. I've just heard, though, that there's a problem with one of the thrusters and it won't be docking on time. So hopefully they can troubleshoot the issue. It's a new upgraded version of the cargo freighter. So seems to be some issues with the thrusters. So hopefully it can make it to the International Space Station because it's carrying a lot of cargo and consumables and science experiments as well. So fingers crossed with that. And on to VAST. I've got a video of VAST. This is Haven 1, by the way, just playing in the background. VAST Space has backed NASA's new commercial space station strategy. It's not surprising, really. The CEO of VAST Space, Max Haut, said he supports NASA's revised approach to commercial space stations. NASA will now use multiple Space Act agreements to support development, leading to 4 crew missions for 30 days, which is what VAST supports with their Haven 1. basically you dock with a Crew Dragon, which can have 4 people on board, and you can spend, up to I think it's up to 30 days on Haven 1. I think their initial missions are just going to be a week or 2 weeks, but I think you can stay there for 30 days, which is what NASA will now accept as like the minimal configuration. Over time, of course, they will want longer and longer missions, 6 to 12 months missions like they have on the ISS. So Max Hout says, we've seen in commercial crew between Boeing and SpaceX why it's really critical to keep 2 winners, 2 companies competing all the way to the end. He pushed back on the need for long duration mission support. He said, if you say, I want permanent presence on day 1, all you do is you delay when you see that. We think it's critical to stay in low Earth orbit, not to cede it to China. What are we selling? The number one thing we're selling is missions on orbit, seats and time in a space station. Of course we are incentivized and we want to sell the US government full year occupancy instead of 30 days. But it's a stepping stone. So you start with Haven 1. They have plans for a bigger station called Haven 2. They even have plans in the future for artificial gravity by spinning the modules around. So they have big plans, but you start small, and 4 crew for 30 days seems like a good idea. And I believe NASA will be supporting 2 of 3 companies with Space Act agreements, which if that's the case, that's very good news. So moving on to Axiom Space, start with this one first here. So in a post, Axiom said they announced Bavaria takes a major step forward with the signing of a letter of commitment officially urging federal leaders to secure Germany's place on a future Axiom space mission, a clear signal of Germany's ambition to expand its role in human spaceflight. With broad support from local institutions and industry, this commitment highlights a shared vision for the future of Europe's space economy, unquote. So hopefully we'll see some German missions, private astronaut missions to the International Space Station. I believe the UK was working towards a UK flight on Axiom with I think Tim Sharp, the UK astronaut, as commander. So maybe Germany would be doing the same. And in a separate piece of news, Axiom Space announced that Katya Achazareta has signed a seat reservation agreement with Axiom Space for a future human spaceflight mission. This future mission seeks to highlight the potential of the Latin American community in space, showing how space exploration breaks down barriers, accelerates discovery, and kickstarts economic growth. From cutting-edge science in microgravity to educational outreach, Katya intends to inspire the next generation of explorers. A mission like this would stimulate a whole of Mexico effort to access space and promote research, development, and innovation. So I don't know much about her. I guess she's some kind of Mexican influencer. I don't know if she's paying for the seat herself or it's sponsored or something, but it's a private astronaut mission and, paying for a seat on Crew Dragon, presumably to the International Space Station. So that's very interesting. On other news, we have European aerospace giants form new satellite venture called Project Bromo. And these are 3 very, very large European companies, aerospace, defense companies. So you have Airbus, Thales, and Leonardo are advancing Project Bromo, a joint initiative to establish a new satellite manufacturing company headquartered in France. They aim to create a European rival to rival, I guess, SpaceX in satellite production. Discussions led to a first deal by the end of 2025 with a potential 10 billion euro valuation. So very, very big size, which is needed for the economy of scale, I think. If you're going to produce a lot of satellites cheaply, you have to have large units. So, so that's Project Bromo. I think I have something else I want to talk about. Yes, I have a Starcatcher. Here it is. Let's bring that up on the screen. So Starcatcher is Starcatcher power purchase agreement. So I've covered Starcatcher on this channel already. So there's a video if you want to know all the details. But basically, they collect solar power and they beam it to other satellites in orbit. So it's not down to Earth, it's other satellites in orbit. So they'll have a whole network of solar power satellites, and other satellites without any change, without any upgrading. It will just beam solar power directly onto the solar panels of client satellites, and they'll get more power. Or perhaps when they're in the shadow of the Earth's shadow around the sun, they can beam power then, so their payloads work 24/7, or just higher power. So Starcatcher network uses solar power satellites to beam power to other satellites. They announced that Astro Digital US, a satellite manufacturer, will buy power from it to support their mission as a service model. The Starcatcher network will allow satellites in the single kilowatt range to scale their power output by a factor of 10 without any increase in the size of the satellite bus or new equipment. It's just like solar energy from the sun, except it doesn't come from the sun, it comes from the Starcatcher network. So for instance, this would allow them to operate more sensors, run them at higher power output, or just run their payloads 24/7. So Starcatcher satellites beam power directly onto the solar panels of client satellites. No additional equipment is needed, which is awesome. And this is NASA's CHAPIA crew for a year-long Mars mission simulation. So this is simulating living on a Mars habitat for a year. So a crew of 4 will stay in this actually 3D printed habitat, printed by Icon Technologies. This is what appears to be like the outside of the habitat. Obviously it's not outside, but they can do like EVA missions outside the habitat. So 4 research members will soon participate in NASA's year-long simulation of a Mars mission inside a habitat at the agency's Johnson Space Center in Houston. This mission will provide NASA with data to inform human exploration of the Moon, Mars, and beyond. The crew will enter Mars June Alpha, as it's called, on the 19th of October 2025, so in about a month from now, and they'll stay for 378 days. There'll be a series of Earth-based missions. Through a series of Earth-based missions called CHAPIA, which is Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analogue, carried out in a 3D printed habitat that was 3D printed by Icon Technologies. NASA aims to evaluate certain human health and performance factors ahead of future Mars missions. The crew will undergo realistic resource limitations, equipment failures, communication delays, isolation and confinement, and other stresses, along with simulated high-tempo extravehicular activities. This is the second one-year Mars surface simulation conducted through CHAPIA. The first mission concluded in July of 2024. So that's interesting, and NASA's getting more experience on Mars habitats and living and working on Mars, which is good to know. And I think I have another segment on PLD space. Do I have the... Yes, I do. Here it is. So PLD Space is a European space startup. It's actually a Spanish company, and they've been working towards their Miura 5 launch vehicle. And this is a burst test for their stage 1. So basically they pressurize it and to see at what point it fails, and hopefully that's at higher pressures than they would experience during flight. So they've announced a successful burst test of the full-scale prototype of its Miura 5 first stage booster. So PLD is gearing up for its first launch of the Miura 5, and they've been testing and verifying and qualifying the engines and the first stage and the second stage, and they expect to fly from the European Spaceport in French Guiana sometime in 2026. So that's exciting. I think, is that everything I want to cover today? There's some comments I want to cover. First of all, from Space Startup News last week, we've got a few comments. I'll stick myself down here just to make it a bit easier to read. So Martin the Martian is saying, I am really looking forward to seeing the Stoke Space design, fly and develop it was a brave choice to go with something so different, and I hope they will do well. And Joe Gogin says innovation is needed for the space industry, and the only ones brave enough to do it are the private companies. So if you're not familiar with Stoke Space, they are developing a fully reusable launch vehicle. The first stage and the second stage return back to the launch site. You can see the legs on the first stage. The second stage has an active cooled heat shield. This is the second stage, so you can see it's got landing legs, and the bottom here is actively cooled with liquid hydrogen, which vents as it heats up. So basically there's no tiles, so it's very easy to reuse. Once it comes back, you do a quick inspection, and then it's good to go again. And that's the thing with rockets. They only make money when they fly, so you want to fly them as often as possible. The second stage also uses an aerospike design. As you can see, there's lots of small engines around the rim of the second stage, and the exhaust basically kind of acts like a nozzle, and it's more fuel efficient. No one's really had an aerospike engine operational before that I'm aware of. So they're doing actively cooled heat shield, they're doing an aerospike engine, and they're making a fully reusable vehicle. So that's kind of it's fantastic, but it's also pretty high risk. And I think we have a comment here, if I just get rid of myself for the moment. Dave Huntsman saying, yeah, Stoke is the only one going for full reusability, the necessary holy grail, but unlike SpaceX, they haven't been going the evolved launch vehicle route. Instead, which is income-producing route, leading up to his first very risky, which has led to the death of previous companies. We really, really need for them to succeed. So it's a great idea and lots of new technology, but it's very risky. So I guess we'll see next year. And Tom Fraser saying, this is to do with one of the space news segments where I'm talking about the moon. He says, we keep hearing a number of orbiters and associated landers, but are any of the orbiters able to beam power down to the lander to make them survive the lunar night? Not so far. Well, Volta Space is working on that. I've got a video on Volta Space if you want to know the details. But basically, they have a satellite orbiting, well, a whole series of satellites orbiting the moon with a laser, and they can beam power down to a lunar rover equipped with the right receiving equipment, and it can power the lunar rover. So that's Volta Space. An alternative for the lunar night is using nuclear batteries. Xenopower is working on providing nuclear batteries to lunar rovers, and it generates thermal heat and also a small amount of electricity to keep the lunar rover alive during the lunar night. And I think iSpace has an agreement with Xenopower on the use of nuclear batteries. So there's two different ways you can keep equipment alive over the lunar night. And I think with that, oh yes, there's one other set of comments. This is on the Lunar Rail Network video I did the previous week. I read some comments out on the live stream on Sunday, but there's more comments coming in. So I just wanted to address some of those. Midnight Visions is saying, where are you going to get the washed ballast from? So the idea is like to move regolith, to get rid of the hills and slopes, and to fill in the divots and pits. You're going to need an excavator that digs up the regolith and then moves it. The problem is it's very hard to get traction on the moon, so the rover could just tip over or roll over when it tries to dig into the regolith. So you need ballast. And the idea is you just put the ballast behind the excavator. Behind the excavator, you just put tons of lunar soil, and that gives it the mass, the weight, that it can dig into the ground and not flip over. So that's the solution to that. And Long John is saying, wonder if that rail train will be completed before the one in California. No. Yes. Well, I think it probably will be, because I don't think the train in California is going anywhere. I think this lunar rail concept could, if funded. So we'll see. And 2GO is saying, please make it a steam train. That would be awesome. But I don't think we have the technology for steam trains on the moon, given that there's no oxygen on the moon. So anyway, not in the atmosphere. So This was I think it's a Polish comment. I wanted to know what it was, so I translated it. And translation is, why the hell all this? Unimaginable costs. This is for Lunar Rail Network. And how are they supposed to transport back to Earth what they mine? It'll never pay off. So they're not transporting any materials back to the Earth, with a single possible exception of helium-3, which is extremely rare and valuable, and potentially it would make sense to transport it back to Earth for sale. Check out my videos on Interlune and Magna Petra. But other than helium-3, everything else is staying on the moon. The purpose is to reduce the number of Earth resupply missions. So consumables like water, oxygen for life support, and hydrogen and oxygen for propellant wouldn't need to be shipped from Earth. You can manufacture them on the moon and use them for lunar landers or fuel cell storage. And also, like, water could be used for hydroponics or for growing plants. And in addition, you could process and extract metals, aluminium, iron, silicon. Silicon can be used for solar panels. Add oxygen, you've got silicon dioxide, which is glass. So you can manufacture useful materials from the lunar regolith, and the regolith can be 3D printed for like sleepers for rail tracks, or for habitats, or for landing pads, or for berms. So there's a lot you can do with lunar resources. And also we have Bobola saying 1758, ouch, them centrifugal forces. So basically in the video, there's a train on Earth, a Spanish train that's going around a track too quickly and smashes into the side, into the embankment, because the centrifugal forces are pushing it away from the track, and the traction is not good enough because it's going too fast and it slams into the side. On the moon, that would be much easier to do. So any rail network on the moon, you'd have to take curves very, very slowly, and ideally avoid curves altogether by building bridges over craters or filling craters in. And maybe in the future we can bore tunnels underneath the moon's surface so you've got a straight track. Curves are definitely a problem for our rail system. And the final comment, Americans building public transport on another planet or moon. That's funny. They still have to achieve that in the US. Yeah, that's a problem. The whole of the West has, because of environmental regulations and planning regulations, it's very hard to build anything. But none of those exist on the moon, so it's a lot easier. In theory, at least from a legal point of view, it's easy to build on the moon. I know it's technically quite difficult. So if you enjoyed this space news video, especially this new format, which is unpolished, unscripted, consider buying me a coffee. It helps fund the channel, and the link is in the description. So space news, I'm doing my normal live stream at the weekend, Saturday evening or Sunday morning, depending where you are. And it's a good place to share your opinion, your thoughts or opinions on the videos I've done that week, or on any space topic in general. It's fine. And I'll highlight, as usual, most thought-provoking comments people have left on the videos for that week. And yeah, so if you have the time at the weekend, please tune in and say hi. And be sure to like and subscribe my videos so you'll see the latest ones. I do 3 or 4 videos a week typically, and I cover the space sector, space industry. I'm covering small space startups. It's my focus. I'm covering a lot on the moon, the lunar infrastructure at the moment. And yeah, so thank you for joining this. It's not actually live, I'll put it out later, but thank you for joining this video, watching this video, and I will see you later. Thank you.